The Wii was a console with lots of games at a very low cost, so when one of them starts skyrocketing in price, well then I have to wonder. I am the Game Collector and this is Second Opinion Games, and today I look at the Data East Arcade Classics. And is it really worth the high price?
Second Opinion Games.
So the Data East Arcade Classics for the Wii currently sells for right around $60. This is actually quite a bit for a Wii title. However, there is 15 classic games shoved on this single game. Now, some of them are pretty old and kind of bad now, but some of them are still old, but really, really good now. So I'm going to take you through every single one of them. Also, because these are arcade games, you have infinite quarters, so just press a button and another quarter goes in, so you can pretty much beat anything, anytime. However, some games you still need the skills to pay the bills. And they even added save states, so if you're halfway through a game, you could always save and come back later. Also, there's challenges that you could use to unlock different marquees and flyers and music tracks and some added stuff. However, there is not any additional games. There is just 15 of them. There are no more to unlock, and there are no hidden cheat codes that let you unlock more games. So, time to start this with one of the more recognizable titles. So the first one I want to take a look at is BurgerTime. And if you grew up in the 80s, you know BurgerTime. A chef that walks across cheeseburgers to make them probably isn't going to be the most tasty. Now, honestly, I don't recommend this game very much at all. The controls are really, really stiff, and sometimes it's hard to even do the simplest of all actions. The enemies come up on you really fast as well. Just trying to beat the first level is a challenge in itself. This is really tough, and if you want to play a better version of BurgerTime, well, then just go track it down on the Game Boy Color. It's much more playable there. Lock and Chase is pretty cool. It's kind of like Pac-Man, but there are doors that lock and unlock behind you. All of the things that aren't ghosts that are chasing you also have their own very unique personalities, similar to that of Pac-Man, but overall, again, I get kind of bored with this really fast, and some of the ghosts things that are chasing you are just really stupid, so you can clear levels relatively easy, and the whole locking doors behind you is kind of neat, but really not necessary. Just play it if you really feel like it. Side Pocket is a really cool pool game. It got a great port for the NES, and if you never played a pool game before, well, they pretty much all play the same, and the pockets seem kind of big. Most of the time, you could get them in there just by hitting it as hard as possible, and they just fly around the table. However, there is some skill involved if you want to play correctly, and learning how to use the different angles on the table or where to strike the cue ball in order to get them in the pocket is pretty good, and will probably actually help your real pool game as well. Super Darwin is a very unique vertical shooter. There's lots of power-ups, and the more power-ups you collect, the bigger your ship gets, which also means that you are a huge target, so you're gonna die really fast. Now, yes, it's really, really difficult, and the fact that you can't just restart exactly from where you pick up means you're going to be playing the first level over and over again. However, it is really satisfying to power up to become an unstoppable juggernaut, at least until you come to the first boss, where his shots just destroy you almost immediately. Burning Rubber is one of those racing games that really didn't age very well. At first glance, it looks a little like Spy Hunter, except you could jump, which thank God for that. Also, it's a bit like bumper cars because you're always getting slammed all around, and occasionally your enemies will kill themselves just by running into you. Make sure you really hit that jump button often, and you're gonna need to take full advantage of it for some of the really tight jumps. It's really fun in short bursts, but it doesn't hold my interest for very long. Peter Piper's Ice Cream Factory. I guess this is a Bubble Bobble clone, only it's done really badly. This is probably the worst game on this entire collection, and I can't quite figure it out. And honestly, I don't want to, because it's kind of garbage. Express Raider is a really unique idea here as well. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up that's also a one-on-one fighter game. After every single character, your life sort of gets reset, and you see the bar at the top. When it goes to one side, you kill the guy. When it goes to the other side, you're the one that dies. Now, some people are really unfair here, as they might have guns or shovels to smack you down, but using your fists and your feet just work kind of fine. There's even a train level, and you know I love me a good train level, and there's a horse level that's a lot better than the Back to the Future games, and you could shoot them up just great on that. And this is one of those ones that at first I really hated, but it's really grown on me. A little too much. Kind of like, you know, a tumor or something. Heavy Barrel's the only oddball here that you need the nunchuck attachment just to play, because you need an extra input for aiming all around. Honestly, I'd rather play with the GameCube controller, and that's what I use to play all of the games. So you have then the upper left and right buttons to fire, which doesn't really feel too comfortable. And the C-stick on the GameCube is what you aim with. Also doesn't feel super comfortable. The graphics here really didn't hold up at all, and honestly, I'd rather play one of these run-gun games on the NES over this real arcade port. So, it is what it is. Okay, now we're going to start getting into some of the more graphically impressive games. And Crude Busters really looks cool. And there's an extra button press here where it allows you to pick up stuff and use it as weapons. And you'll be doing that a lot. Enemies seem to crowd you all over. I love the overall aesthetics in a post-apocalyptic world, and bashing people to death is really satisfying. However, bosses start to get really cheap, and then you can start to feel like this was a real quarter sucker game. It just feels a little unfair at spots. However, it does look really cool. So when you start getting really bored with this, and you will, just save and then come back to it at a later time, and who knows, you might end up beating it. Then it brings us to Caveman Ninja, also known as Joe and Mac. If you played it on the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo, then you know what you're getting. Really short levels with epic boss battles. These dinosaurs look amazing, but the best part about the game is the babes. They are freaking gorgeous. Dad East really knew how to make some great looking girls in their video games. And they even give you a little kiss now and then. Your harem was kidnapped, and it's up to you to get them back. However, this little quarter muncher is pretty unique because you can't just force your way through every single level. If you die, you start back at the beginning of the level, which means you're going to actually need to use the right skill in order to get through the game. It's incredibly fun, and pretty much everyone has to play this one. Street Hoops is Data East's version of NBA Jam, but without the NBA. Instead, it has countries, and believe it or not, the United States is really weak, except for slam dunking, which they could do pretty much non-stop. However, other countries like maybe France can hit three-pointers all the time, so why wouldn't you just pick that one? It is really fun to play, especially with another human being. This one is one of the games that you'll be coming back to again and again, just because of the multiplayer aspect and how unique every single game can be. And it's pretty cool to look at as well. Bad Dudes versus the Dragon Ninja. Bad Dudes is a classic game. Of course, Ronald Reagan got kidnapped by ninjas, and it's up to you and maybe your brother to get him back. It's multiplayer. It's beating up ninjas, picking up nunchucks, and drinking a cold can of Coke. And it introduces Karnoff into the mix, and he goes down pretty fast. If you happen to beat the game, then Ronald Reagan joins you for some cheeseburgers and some hot chicks at the White House, which is always something that you should take up anytime you get the chance, because Ronald Reagan's freaking awesome. And beating up ninjas is really satisfying. The game can be played through really quickly, and it holds up incredibly well. And I love the extra speech that the game also adds. Yeah, I'm bad.
I'm bad.
Wizard Fire is one of those games that is better played with a friend, but still great playing with yourself. And it is a Dungeons and Dragons inspired game. Sort of like Gauntlet, but with a slightly different view and greatly upgraded graphics. In between levels, there are cutscenes that are fully voiced, but it is maybe a little bit too quiet. I like the different characters that you could have, whether it be a knight or a wizard or a bard, and I really like the elf character because it reminds me of Popful Mail on the Sega CD. This is a very satisfying game with an interesting magic mechanic that keeps the game feeling fresh. And each level is only like 3 to 5 minutes long, and there's only 5 levels in the game, so you'll have no trouble finishing it the first time through. But I got a feeling this is one you're gonna keep coming back to, especially to show off to many different friends. Magical Drop 3 is one of those matching games that you take colors and match them up and make them disappear. This is one of those games that chicks always love, so if you have a date that you want to sit down and play video games with, well, then this one is a no-brainer. You play one, you play them all, however, they always seem to be super addictive and really fun. So if you want to have a good time with your girl or want to know if she's worth keeping, seeing that if she's playing video games with you, then that's a keeper. And if she says no, well, then kick her to the curb because there are plenty out there. And you know what? A pretty face fades over time. But one that will play video games with you, that's one you need for the long haul. Okay, final game, and I saved the best for last. It is Secret Agent, and this is so freaking cool. It is basically James Bond, the game. You start off the game jumping out of the airplane and shooting other parachuters right out of the air. There's also a level in this game where you can harpoon sharks with your harpoon gun. If you don't think this is James Bond enough, well then you can always assemble your golden gun and just mow everyone down. This is so cool. You even fight Jaws, not the shark, but you do fight sharks. But, Jaws, the guy from the James Bond series. And you even fight Oddjob as well. Yes, this is over-the-top James Bond at its finest. And it is so hilarious just to sit and play. And of course, you end up at the White House by the end of the game. Stop those evil Russians from launching their missiles. And it is just great from start to finish. Action-packed, and you beat the whole game in less than an hour. Probably actually less than 30 minutes, but I just keep coming back to it because it's just terrific. So there it is, all of the games that are on this collection. And I've noticed over the past 2 years, this game went up about $20. So it just seems to keep going up. If you're a collector, well then pick it up pretty much immediately because maybe even after this shows up on YouTube, it's going to go up even more. So honestly, I'm going to say it's worth it. That means it's like $5 or $6 per game. Now, some of the games I'm never going to look back at, but some of the other ones, like Secret Agent, I'm going to keep coming back to again and again. Magical Drop is awesome to play with chicks, and Street Hoops is great to play with friends when you don't feel like playing NBA Jam. Crude Busters is even cool from time to time, and Caveman Ninjas is a classic in its own right. So if you enjoy Data East even a little bit, then you owe it to yourself to get this game. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it. I love Data East, and they are one of my favorite companies for their arcade games. And I want to know, what is your favorite arcade game? And also I want to know what series or handfuls of games or different style of games you want me to cover in the future. I seem to be doing a lot of 3-game-in-1 videos recently, and I want to keep going with that trend. So until later, I will see you again, guys.